I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully you can see my presentation all right. As I mentioned just a minute ago, this is also available on the webinar registration site, so you can download it as a PDF because there are some hyperlinks within that are going to be really helpful resources for you. I'm Naomi Colas. I'm from the service desk, and today we're going to talk about staff reporting for the 22-23 school year. I'm going to cover just kind of a quick overview of what this specific collection kind of entails. I'll introduce a couple of new items for this school year, some changes over last year, and then just give a couple reminders as you prepare and start entering your information. So there is a link here for the calendar that lists staff reporting deadlines and due dates. There are several throughout the school year. We did just open it, so the collection is now available to be added to your portal accounts. The first deadline is September 15th, and this is a statutory deadline for public districts and non-public schools. We do appreciate Rule 18 special purpose and ESUs getting their information by then as well. It allows us to start taking a look at the information that's included in there. And then the fall deadline is October 15th. And this is the formal deadline for all of the systems, with a fall audit window close of October 31st. In November, we pull the information, including email addresses, from staff reporting, and we'll post it to the education directory. This is a public site where anybody can go and see a list of staff that have been reported by all the systems in Nebraska. In December, we extract the data for a non-public collection called non-public curriculum, usually December, January. That's where the non-publics report their course data. And then at the very end of the year, June 30th, it's our final year-end deadline, and that's for all systems. So no changes can be made after that date. So this means that staff reporting is basically open from August through June for systems to report their data, make updates, do everything and report their staff data to the state. So some additional guidance and resources, I've got some links up here. One is for the actual manual itself for the collection. And then this is a link to the staff resources webpage. Looks like we have a question here. Oh, it's for Max. I'll let you answer that, Max. The staff reporting collection is located in the student and staff NSSRS tab. And every year a new activation code is required, as it's a brand new collection. So this isn't one that just kind of stays and recurs year over year. You'll get that activation code from your district administrator. And then once it's added to the portal, you'll see the collection in the top section. It's called available. So this screenshot is from 21-22, but your next one will say staff reporting 22-23. All right, so the data that we're collecting within the staff reporting collection is both demographic and then assignment based. So demographics include all the things, you know, first, last name, race, date of birth. It also includes things like email, salary, contract information. The position assignment information that we collect is related to the position the person is working, could be multiples, the start date, which we call the assignment date, and then also even things like FTE, which can be, and it ranges, right? You could have a full-time person at 100 or someone at various FTEs reporting at multiple assignments. And then every year when we open the collection, we import data from the prior year's collection into it. We don't import everything because the expectation is that there is data that needs to be updated and changed every year. So we consider these missing data points, and these are the ones that you'll have to go into the collection and actually update. So even though we're importing the information from last year, there is a requirement and need for systems to go into the collection and make updates to every staff member. So there are two methods to submit your staff reporting data. One is a file download upload. So if you have a large group of staff that you need to report, this might be the best way. Some schools will download last year's data, and then they'll update the file and then upload that back into the system. The caveat to that being that the formatting has to be really, really perfect. There's instructions in the manual, but then there's also kind of a helpful, when you're uploading those files, there's some helpful notes in that page of the collection. So it's important to note that things like the file name are really important. And the other thing to keep in mind if you do a file upload is that it's going to completely delete any existing information that we imported for you. So once you get your file ready and you upload it into the system, anything else that was old is going to be gone. So it's important to download both staging file records, both the demographics and the position assignment, before you do any kind of uploading. The other method to submit data, and this is helpful for maybe smaller schools and then kind of updates that and changes that occur throughout the school year, is to do the individual entry edit. So this updates can be made on an individual staff person basis. So this, you could go in and make a change to one staff person versus having to upload a file for everybody in the system. Once the information is submitted into the staff reporting collection, the next day you're going to want to go to a second collection called NSSRS validation. And I've listed here the activation code user type for that collection that you want to be sure to ask your superintendent for is the staff data steward. You're going to go to the student and staff NSSRS tab of the portal, and again, add that to your portal account if you don't already have it. Now, unlike staff reporting, this is a collection where once you have it, once you have the correct user type, you're good to go, and you can see multiple years of data within it. Within NSSRS validation, there are lots of things that can help you further analyze your staff reporting information, right? So all the data is going to go into staff reporting, and then you're going to evaluate it, review it, look at everything in NSSRS validation. We have errors that basically compare some of the data that you reported to other systems, but it also looks for things that just kind of look funky. So there's certification errors, Title I, FTE. In NSSRS validation, there's also verification reports, and these are extremely helpful as well, because this is going to be your report that lists the staff that you've reported so far, those that are certified, those that are a full listing of everybody reported. And then it again compares to other systems as well. So we've got some reports that look at course data and kind of compare staff members' endorsements, teachers, et cetera. And then we even have a report that looks at some statewide licensure information. There is a link here to the DHHS licensure lookup site, which I think can be helpful as well. And then the other thing that NSSRS validation can be helpful for as well is looking at last year's data, the year before that. If you're a new staff person and you haven't done this collection before, this allows you to go back and see how people were reported in the past, and that can be very helpful. The NDE Staff ID is a third collection that relates to staff reporting. And in this collection, you can look up and create new staff IDs. So let's say you have a new para at your school. This person isn't certified, so they probably don't already have a staff ID. So you go into the NDE Staff ID collection and create one for them. The information here that's really helpful to consider is to make sure you're inputting a social security number when you create that new staff ID. And the reason why is because when, let's say this para then goes to school and becomes a teacher, when they apply for their certificate, that certificate system is actually going to go into staff ID and look for that social security number. So if that person already exists, they use the existing staff ID versus creating a second one and then having a duplicate ID. I've got a link here for the public certification lookup site. This is also very helpful if you're looking up someone's certification. What are they endorsed in? When does their cert expire? And then the Teach Business Partner Portal, or we call it the BPP. This is also really helpful for districts. And this lists staff and those who are certified specific to your district or system. So if you haven't heard of this, you're not quite sure if you have access to it, ask your superintendent. They're getting a email from the certification team to be able to give you access to that. All right, so that's kind of an overview of staff reporting. New for the 22-23 school year, we've got 2 new position assignment codes. So for the first time, we're going to collect substitute teacher data in staff reporting, and we're going to collect coach data. So there are 2 new codes, 5190 and 5330, that you're going to report. There's a couple things to consider with these new codes. We've had a collection in the CDC called substitute teacher for years. That's gone away. We're not going to need that one now because you're going to report your sub data in staff reporting. And there's also a new position assignment field within staff reporting. So if you're doing some of those file uploads, there's a new field, a new column, and that's going to be days worked. So this is only required for substitutes. And you're going to report that information in increments of 0.0 or 0.5. So that would be full or half days. Some considerations for these two new positions is that FTE is not required. So you're not going to get an error on FTE for either of these because it's not something we're collecting. And the other thing that's really important, especially for the coach position, is that you're only going to report those activities or athletic coaches who aren't being reported in any other role, right? If you've got a math teacher who's also your football coach, that math teacher is already being reported full-time, potentially, as a teacher. So you don't need to add in a secondary line of position assignment and add his coaching endorsement sort of stuff. You only need to do the person that comes to your district, your school, and all they do is coach. So let's say the person who's coaching soccer, they are not a certified teacher. They only come and they coach. That's an example of someone that you're going to report with the 5330 code. And then last but not least, we did take the substitute teacher data from last year's CDC collection and we imported it in staff reporting. So you shouldn't have to recreate too many returning substitutes, but you will have to create all those coaches because this is the first time you're going to be reporting them. Question from Leslie, do we still need to list all subs in staff reporting? And it looks like Max is typing answer, but I'll quick chime in here too. Yes. Substitutes renewals, they look at the days worked as part of that. So it's going to be really important that you get your substitutes reported in staff reporting. And the collection's open year round, right? So let's say you don't know who your sub is right now. You may not have them and use them until January. So then you can wait until January, open up staff reporting, enter your substitute in there. Katie Waldo, we are co-opted in sports. Who reports as the coaches, the school that holds the contract? I'm going to have to ask the certification team about this one just to make sure I answer it correctly. I do believe that the school who holds the contract is likely going to be the one reporting it, but let me take that one back to the certification team because I think that's a good question. Yeah, Max, will you keep track of that one for me? And then Jackie Nielsen, when do we record the sub teacher days worked? Is this the same as last year? Right. Okay. So last year we had multiple deadlines for the substitute teacher collection. No, basically you're going to want to report the sub teacher days worked on a schedule that works for you. I know the certification team, the accreditation team would love to see it on like a monthly basis. But I think it's really going to be up to what works best for your district. But again, staff reporting is open year round. So you could do it in a semester or a quarterly basis. And that's going to be helpful to start getting some of that information in there, ensuring the person's certified, doing some kind of those checks and balances. Carolyn, do we report substitute paras here too? And then again, reporting all the paras on classified staff reporting. Okay, so Carolyn's question is asking about, I'm not going to answer the substitute paras question because that's a whole nother bag of tricks. What you want to keep in mind with reporting paras in the staff reporting collection, and I have a slide here that I'll get to the next one here, is that there are two types of paras that you're reporting in staff reporting. Those are your instructional support paras, and those are your SPED paras. So if the para role falls under those two categories, you're going to report it in staff reporting. I hope that answers that. Now, she also asked about a CDC collection. We call it non-certificated staff, and that collection still exists, and you're still going to want to report every single one of your paras, regardless of whether they fall under those two caveats in that CDC non-certificated collection. So that doesn't change. And then Kim Taylor, do coaches have to have an endorsement certificate? Do they have to be endorsed for 7 to 12 grades? This is a question for the certification team. And I can make a note here and follow up with you after. Max, hopefully you can help me with that one too.
I believe the idea behind it was that there is some type of permit that they need to have. And so the point of adding them to staff reporting is so that the certification team can actually
Yes.
get some of their employment history, which helps with getting renewals.
Right.
So that's why we don't need it for people who are in other positions. You know, if like the math teacher needs to get a renewal, we already have their employment history showing them as a math teacher, but we didn't have any kind of data about people that were only coaches before.
Yeah, we didn't have that connection between the coach and what district that coach was at. And so it was hard if we needed to talk to someone about a coach. Let's talk to someone about their application. Let's talk to someone about this coach's permit. We didn't know which district that coach was at. So this is going to help with some of that.
I'm not exactly sure about the requirements for like grade level endorsements for that type of permit though.
And that's where we would have to ask the certification team. All right, lots of good questions, and I'm sure more will come up, and we want to be sure to address those, so keep them coming. I'm going to go on to the next slide here. If I can find my mouse. Okay. So here's those para coding. There's a few updates, but generally speaking, there are two para codes that you're going to report in staff reporting. One is your 5160s. These were called instructional paras in the past. We're calling them instructional support paraprofessionals. And then the other one is your 5162, your SPED paraprofessionals. So those are the only two para codes. And then as a reminder to that, last year we removed some of the SPI or special program indicator codes off of those instructional paras. So 75160, I5160, S5160, those are gone. You cannot use those. So the only combinations you can use for the instructional support paras are listed here. And then your SPED paras are all going to be 7s, Is, or S's. Those are the only combinations that are going to work. So then a few reminders just about staff reporting. I kind of looked through some tickets that we've had in the past to just kind of throw a few little ad hoc points in here. One is if staff leave in the middle of the year, don't remove them from staff reporting. We actually have a field called completion date, and you're going to put an end date in there. So that way you still are reporting the time that they worked at your district or your system. Definitely don't delete them altogether. And as Max and I have kind of alluded to, the certification team uses FTE data, that days worked, a lot of that experience data from staff reporting when evaluating certification renewals and applications. So a big one that's come up a lot is that someone will, a district system will enter 1 as an FTE in staff reporting, and that's actually not a full-time person. A 100 in staff reporting is going to be your full-time person. So it's really important to look at those FTEs when you're entering that data. That can make the teachers who are reapplying for their certification, it makes their lives easier or harder. And then the other thing is just a reminder to review your errors in your reports in NSSRS validation throughout the school year. So don't just wait until the end of the school year, because there's a lot of information that you can be updating throughout the school year that's going to help with those connections to all those various systems, especially like the certification one. So try to review those errors and those reports throughout the year. Maybe make a quarterly meeting in your calendar, however it works for you and your districts. And then the last thing is we are going to have a couple work days related to staff reporting. And so we'll get those announced in a bulletin and get those sent out soon. So be sure that you're subscribed to the bulletin so you can see those. In fact, I sent a bulletin last night that staff reporting was open for the 22-23 school year. So if you did not get that, it potentially means that you're registered or subscribed as a weekly bulletin recipient. So you're not going to get that message until probably Thursday or Saturday, depending on how our mail system is working. So you may consider wanting to update your bulletin subscription to either immediate, which is a one-time notice for every new announcement, or daily. Doesn't mean you're going to get a notification daily. It just means that if there's multiple notifications in a day, you'll get only one email. Something to consider. So that's it for that. Any questions? We've already fielded quite a few. Any more before I move on? Okay. I keep asking questions. There's time still in our session. I'm just going to quick give you an upcoming September. Here's what's coming next month for the data webinar. Max is going to, of course, do his monthly advisor updates. We have the early childhood team coming, and then we'll do an advisor kind of follow-up collection presentation specific to what data should you be focused on for that upcoming deadline. We'll have a pre-recorded session about PPRA, FNS, which is kind of security, data security stuff specific to certain programs. And I don't want anyone to forget, as Max has mentioned before already, August has 2 pre-recorded sessions available. One is for data quality and compliance, that is ready right now. And then there's one for new data stewards, and that should be coming soon. The fabulous Denise Schuyler from the service desk recorded that for us. And it's going to be really helpful, not only if you're a public district, but also non-publics. I think anybody who's the responsible data person for your school or system, it's going to be a helpful presentation, and you can revisit it if you have changes in staffing throughout the year. So that should be really helpful as well. All right, so that's all I got. Max, anything else?
Nope. Again, yeah, we still need a few things that we will get posted to that nedataconference.com website. If anyone here really needed to see the new data steward video, we have it actually on YouTube, and then we'll put that link into the data conference site later. But if you check the chat here, I put the YouTube link for the new data steward.
Thank you, Max. We have one question from Jean asking about updating her bulletin subscription. So if you go to my presentation and use that hyperlink for the bulletin, there is a little envelope icon, and you click on that, and you're basically going to resubscribe for the bulletin. You're just going to click on the notification to get it daily versus what's probably already in the system and was kind of automated when we went to this new program as weekly. But if you have any questions on how to do that, or if you're finding that it's not working, email us at advisorhelp@nebraskacloud.org, and we can be sure to help you get that set up.